Hello, everybody, and welcome to the solstice edition of the Urban Forestry Committee. It is December 21st, 2023, and let's go around the room and introduce ourselves alphabetically, starting with the first name. Is that Calla?
Yes, I think that would be me first.
Hi, you.
Hey, I'm Calla Taylor. I'm a junior at Somerville High School, and I'm the youth member of the Urban Forestry Committee.
Hi there, I'm Chris Dwan. I am a local activist and very passionate about our urban canopy and keeping things growing and green here in Somerville. And I would note that with the solstice, the days are getting longer and spring is coming.
Hi, I'm Dorothy. I guess I'm the generalist on the committee. Longtime Somerville resident and work in regenerative agriculture.
Hi everyone, my name is Leah Grossman. I'm a landscape architect and member of the committee, and excited. I saw a picture of spring blooms recently and got excited about that. But winter form is also beautiful, so reveling in that for the next few months.
I'll go next, I suppose. I don't never know if to go before you, Victoria, or after, but I'll go. Vanessa Bukele, Senior Urban Forestry and Landscape Planner. Excited to be planting trees in the city, but no longer because it's all done, and lots of other tree-related things. I'm also the administrator here, so one thing we do is promote people to panelists so you can share your video if you'd like. So I'm going to start pushing buttons. Feel free to decline if you just want to sit in the background.
Thank you, Vanessa. And my name is Tori Antonino. I'm a co-chair of the Urban Forestry Committee, and I'm an ecological landscaper. Had the pleasure of planting 150 bluebells this past week, 2 of which I gave to Vanessa. Okay, shall we go to the open space, the next item on the agenda?
Sure. Just a reminder, I sent out an email a week ago-ish, maybe, I don't know, but the city's open space and recreation plan is getting a revision. A brand new one is being begun being written by Allison Moore and Public Space and Urban Forestry. So she's looking for feedback from the community, including UFC. So there's an email with a link to a survey and some specific questions for UFC members as well. I don't remember if I put the deadline up tomorrow, but maybe. If not, look at the deadline and give her feedback as soon as you can. For those of you who are not on the committee, there is a survey that we're looking for feedback from everyone. So I can put a link in the chat to where you can access that survey.
Excellent. Thank you, Vanessa. And please do take the survey. Our last open space recreation plan was mainly a focus on field space. And I think this one is going to have a different element. I mean, that's my main recollection. There probably was more in it, but that was sort of the trying to figure out where we put our athletic field. So this one, I think it's probably going to be more about our parks and how we use them. So please fill that out.
There are some requirements. It's a state required thing to have to be able to apply for certain grants. So I think a lot of the recreation things are required documents, but there's definitely room for additional information as well.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that clarification. All right. Let's go to resident concerns, and also just in general for people to introduce yourselves. So yeah. Hi, Barbie. Who are you?
I'm good. I guess I'll start with introducing myself. I'm Barbie. I use they, them pronouns, and I am a resident of Somerville and for 4 years now, and also a current grad student at MIT. And I'm here to listen and learn more about how Somerville is enacting the pollinator action plan and also how we care for the parks and trees and everything. So wanted to show my face, but I am more of a background character right now.
Yeah, well, Barbie's absolutely not a background character. I just want to, she is, sorry, Barbie, are our leader in getting the MIT campus to plant native plants, and even using the native planting ordinance of Somerville as sort of a template to get this university to change its landscaping practices. We will do a seed bombing in January. And I just want to appreciate Barbie for their work in the Mayor's Summer Jobs Program and getting us funds to do a pollinator garden at the high school. They're a wonderful person. Thanks for coming. Okay. Any, Pamela, do you want to say hi? No pressure.
Unmute. Can you all hear me? Okay, my name is Pam Blittersdorf. I am a 10-year resident of Somerville, and active in the garden club and trying to keep tabs on what's happening with urban forestry so I can sort of relay that back to them. I'm excited to hear tonight's agenda.
Excellent. All you, Rob. Do you have any, want to say hi?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Rob. I am actually a Cambridge resident, but I do some part-time work consulting with Portico Brewing in Somerville for their sustainability initiatives. And yeah, just always interested to check in, see how things are going, and to keep up with the news so that we can do our best at Portico to support urban tree canopy.
Okay, thank you for being here. And I will reconnect with you because what you're offering is something that if urban forestry can't hold it, perhaps one of our nonprofit groups in the area like Groundwork or Green and Open can do that, because I don't know if there's like a conflict of interest for us in particular working as the urban forestry committee with you guys. Vanessa, do you have clarity on that actually?
I'm so sorry. I was promoting people to panelists and I did
Oh.
not hear what I'm being asked.
So I really want to take advantage of Rob's presence and his consulting services with Portico to do some sort of we could do self-watering planters or plant more trees, or, really take advantage of it. And I just don't know if the urban forestry committee could hold that, or if it would be best held with one of our like nonprofits, like a Groundwork or Green and Open or Growing Center or something like that. Like, would there be a conflict of interest for us to work directly with Portico Brewing to explore pollinator gardens or something like that?
I don't think that would be a conflict of interest. Just have to be careful of not having more than a quorum of people be involved at any one time.
Yep.
But I think we're an advisory committee that can advise on these sorts of activities.
Well, I'd like to take that up in the next year and actually involve other groups too. And I think that would be, I appreciate you coming, Rob, and I'd like to follow up with you.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, good. Anyone else want to anyone else want to take part in that? Leia? Okay.
Yeah, definitely with if availability allows.
Yeah. Okay, if anyone else wants to, you can hit me up or put your name in the chat, raise your hand. Okay. Are there any resident concerns that we have? And Courtney, you want to say hi?
Hi. Hello, I'm Courtney Kirk. I'm here tonight as a resident. Just for full transparency during this meeting this evening, I am a municipal employee that works for the city of Somerville in the Public Space and Urban Forestry Division. Just for the record, I'm here tonight as a resident of Somerville who lives on Spring Street. Thank you.
Okay,
I have a quick concern.
yeah, please.
I just want to re-raise, and maybe in the new year, we could talk about it, we could figure out where it goes. The bump out planters on Beacon in particular. The plan and appropriate usage of those is unclear to the residents. And I think it would be healthy to provide a little guidance and maybe even a little resource about whether the city plans to get in and do something with those, or whether neighbors are encouraged to use them or whatever. There's some sort of conflicting usage going on, and it's causing a bit of confusion between folks who don't know whether we're just like, some people say, well, that's the city's job, and other people make their planter kind of pretty. And then in other cases, it gets weird and weedy and people are like not happy with it. So I think just some guidance would be neat. I feel like would be within the remit of the committee to discuss, since we advise, but then ultimately, it's up to the various departments to say whether they've got space in the schedule to do something with those spaces, or if we want to make a list and let people adopt them. Like, I don't know which of those is the right path, but there's confusion.
I think as planters, those areas are probably under the purview of DPW grounds, I suspect. But they probably don't have big plans for them and limited staff to actually deal with them. Perhaps our guidance document can be making suggestions of how a formal adoptive process could take place so that people can take ownership if there's not real ownership, but adoptive plant caring for ownership, with proper approvals from different departments. I think that would be a great place to start. Maybe we can write something up for that and have some discussion with DPW and PSF to make sure that we're giving good information.
Yeah,
it seems reasonable.
If we can adopt storm drains, we can probably adopt bump outs.
I think this is a great topic to put on our agenda for next year as well. Because I know like all the Spring Hill development, there's going to be a lot more bump outs, and I imagine either people are talking about this and thinking about it long term, but the fact that we have examples and are seeing how it goes, there should be sort of uniform guidance across the city, whether certain ones are city maintained, certain ones are up for adoption, or yeah, I'd love to dive into that.
I agree. Maybe once they're adopted, they get a sign and they're protected from vandals or those who might disagree with, or maybe they can get certified or something, like, so that beauty is not infringed on. I'm sorry for your loss, Chris, by the way. Let me know what I can do to help. Let me know what I can do to help replant or advise or whatever.
It's not about that little one. It's like as I walked around, the confusion is real all the way up and down the street. And I think that there's an opportunity for us to guide and maybe even encourage people. Like, people want to plant stuff, so let's tell them how to do it.
Yeah, wicked. I have an update. I forgot to put it on the agenda, but the vegetative roof ordinance passed unanimously. Yeah, so 80% of a roof must be vegetated, outside of mechanicals, terraces, and solar. I understand why it wasn't supported by the administration, and that it's sort of kind of in a gray area with sort of mandating what like goes like mandating what's on a building that's kind of different than the building ordinance, the state ordinance. I think Tatiana was just being conservative. We'll see. Like, so it passed and it's been working in Cambridge without litigation. So just thank you for the UFC for supporting it. And Vanessa.
I'm just taking minutes. So for clarification, 80% of a roof for what types of buildings?
MR, starting with MR, which is mid-rise. So that'd be mid-rise 3 to mid-rise, I don't know, whatever mid-rise goes up to, 6 maybe. And then commercial, and then high-rise. So it's
And
excluding
all new buildings? They're all new?
yeah, new buildings, and then I think 100% renovation of a building.
Okay.
And I don't know if it says significant renovation. I don't know. If someone can pull that up. I was looking for it. It would be in the most recent city council agenda. If you go to the Legistar meeting portal, whatever it is. So, but a victory. And yeah, and that means, so just when an ordinance is passed, the start date is the day that the public hearing is scheduled to happen. So I think that was like on the September 5th that the public hearing was scheduled. So that means all developments that were approved from that date on that are under the MR3 to MR5 commercial or high rise needs to change their master plan to incorporate this. And I'll follow up on these because I don't know if people necessarily know or, you know, how that works. So, okay. Anyone else have an update?
Yeah, I guess it's a resident concern. On Tower Street where the Somerville Hospital is, along the side of it, there's a line of trees. And one of them is half of it's gone. So I don't know. Yeah, I believe it's larger than 8 inches. I think they all are. But yeah, I didn't know if the rule that applies to residents also applies to hospitals or nonprofits. I don't actually know what the entity is. The legal entity for Somerville Hospital is. It's part of CHA, but besides that, don't know if the law applies or not.
Any private property. So I believe they count by half of the tree. Does it mean the tree's not alive anymore?
I
Which
just
half?
passed it and I don't know if it's still alive or not. I would say yeah, I don't know enough about the type of tree it is to know if it would survive it. It's a very trimmed tree anyway. They just have a long trunk and then the branches go out. So it's cut right where all the branches, or appears to be cut where all the branches kind of leave the trunk in a canopy.
Okay.
Maybe slightly lower. I'm not totally sure.
Okay. I will look at it or have Malik look at it and see if it counts. And tell them they're naughty if it does.
If it survives and does that sort of like hydra pollarding look, would it still, if it lives, I guess if it lives, does it then not count at being killed? Wait, I don't know if I'm saying this correctly.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like 2 leaves aren't going to be counting, but if you do enough damage to a tree that you are killing it, then
Yeah.
it counts.
Yeah. Okay.
It depends, you know, maybe they just need to explain what was going on. Maybe it was dead and it just looks like they cut it down now because it looks more obvious, or maybe there was storm damage, but we'll see what it looks like. And if we need more information, we will get more.
This happened, it was before the most recent storm. I saw it, I don't know, a week and a half or 2 weeks ago.
Thank you, Dorothy, for eyes on the ground. And also, if anyone wants to gather seed at the Morse Kelly Pollinator Garden, please help yourselves. Leave some echinacea, maybe the 20% rule, but there's mountain mint, there's aster, there's tons of goldenrod. So that is a resource for the community. Okay, we have some guests tonight. I guess we have Jeff and Courtney in a resident role to talk about the Spring Street Island Pocket Park, which is is that the one that Connor was working on for a time, right?
It
Okay,
is,
well,
yes.
let's hand it over to you. Do you need screen sharing powers?
Let me see if I have the power.
Okay.
Nope, I need to be enabled.
Hold on, I will do that. I was trying to do something else. Jeff, you want to be enabled.
And I see an attendee's hand is raised, and
Yeah, I was trying to
Jane, I might
chat with her.
Yeah, I might have missed you. And I don't know if these two attendees, Jane and Claire, can promote themselves or if they are just choosing not to.
I did offer Jane promotion earlier, so I was gonna check
Okay.
and see what she wanted. Here, Jane, while I'm trying to figure this out, I'm gonna allow you to talk and you can speak your mind. Okay, I have
Can you hear me?
yes.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I didn't realize earlier that when I said I was an attendee, I wouldn't be seen. So I just wanted you all to know that I'm, here to support the Spring Street presentation. So I am just here, even though I don't see myself, but that's fine.
Hi, Jane.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. And Claire, I believe you have the same opportunity to promote yourself if you would like to.
I just promoted her.
Oh,
Sorry, I
perfect.
can't do everything and also trying to remember how to let you share your screen. So I'm
right.
gonna try again. Why can't I do it? Multiple participants.
Oh, there's Claire. Hi, Claire.
Now can you do it? I just pushed a button. Is that working, Jeff?
Yes,
Oh,
I
great.
am
All right.
in. All right, I think this is the one. All right, I think that worked. Make it full screen.
And see it.
Great. Well, thank you for having us. We're really excited to present here today. And Courtney, Jane, and Claire, feel free to jump in at any time to join in the presentation. I'd appreciate the help. So we're here to talk about expanding Spring Street Island. And just to make sure that everyone is on the same page, I just want to show you where the Spring Street Island is. So it's where the here is in the middle of the slide. And for reference, I have Somerville Ave, Summer Street, and Central Street. And it's kind of, between all three of those streets. And I'm just now zooming in a little bit. So you can see Spring Street going north-south here. Spring Street actually goes downhill pretty steeply as you go down the slide. And then Atherton goes east-west, and you have the nice little island there in the middle that is surrounded by that sea of asphalt that we'd really like to reduce. So here's a nicer shot of Spring Street Island. This is taken from Atherton Street. So you can see the nice little black-eyed Susans that I think Connor planted. We got the 3 trees, there's other plantings. And here's another shot looking uphill, towards going up Spring Street. And the island is really cherished by the community. It's a really nice kind of local spot that people do quite a bit on their own time to make better. And I think Connor is the best example. So I don't, if you know Connor, he's a horticulturalist, and he spent a huge amount of time and I think his own money planting native flowers, adding mulch. and doing other things to improve the health of the 3 trees there. And the trees there aren't in the greatest shape. Like they really do need some work. So Connor's been great with that. Jane, Ken, and Steve have put out a Christmas tree every year. We have Christmas lights this year, so it's really nice. Claire and Earthwise Aware have a display about pollinators that is really informative. I built a little custom table. It's like a sort of I guess a log edge table where I selected different table lengths so that the table would be flat even though the land is sloped. So that's a nice little place to have lunch. And last August, we had a block party, and we had it right next to the island, and we probably had about 40 neighbors all hanging out together on a nice summer day. So that was really nice as well. And here are some example pictures of people using the island. People use it quite a bit. It's a really nice part of our community. And to add to some of the pollinator information, this is a slide that Claire provided for me. So these are observations of insects that were taken, only in the vicinity of Spring Street Island. And you can see that we have 149 observations of 36 different species. And you can imagine that if we make the island much bigger than it is, that we will significantly increase the amount of pollinators that we'll have in the area. And this is a slide that I'm going to hand over to Courtney.
So I just want to reframe some of the context of our neighborhood. I think it's important to understand that our Spring Street Triangle is within an environmental justice special designation zone. So, what does that mean? Somerville is an environmental justice city, but within Somerville, there are specific parcels that have additional thresholds that say that they probably need a little more need to receive environmental benefits. So as we're thinking about the Spring Street Triangle, we are absolutely keeping environmental benefits in mind and really wanting the city to invest more in environmental benefits in this location. So specifically in our neighborhood, our designation is that we are a minority neighborhood or a block. So that means that we have 25% or more people in our neighborhood that identify as minorities, and that the median household income is below 150% of the state median household income. So, as the administration and the city tries to prioritize being sensitive about correcting some of the environmental injustices that have occurred in Somerville, we are within a zone that has been designated as needing environmental justice benefits.
Great, thank you, Courtney.
Next slide.
So let's talk about some of the details of what we'd like to see done. So on this slide, I have outlined the existing island, which is about 880 square feet, and you can see all the asphalt around it. And there's a few ways that we could do this. And I think ultimately we need to leave it up to the city of Somerville to pick which one they think is best, but I'm going to show a few possibilities just so you can imagine what we might do. So here's the first one. So one thing that we could do is we could essentially close one lane of Atherton. We could enclose one lane of Spring Street. And if we did that, it makes quite a big difference. It would increase the island to 2,500 square feet, and it would be about 3 times bigger than the current island. And this, I think, would be a fairly conservative and easy addition to make because we're not really changing any traffic patterns. I think really the only complaint that people could make would be we'd be losing some parking, but it's actually a neighborhood where parking is not as much of a premium. So I think that should not be a big deal. If you go on, we have another possibility. We could actually potentially close Atherton Street completely on the top side of the island. We could continue to have one lane of Spring Street closed, and that would give us 3,600 square feet, and it would be about 4 times bigger than the existing island. And the next one is actually my favorite. I think this is actually the most appealing outcome, would be to close Spring Street entirely, close one lane of Atherton, and this would give us the biggest of all the options. It's still about 4 times bigger than the current island. And one nice benefit of this one is we should be able to keep most of the traffic flow. Like traffic coming down Spring Street could go over the top of the island and then continue down, and traffic from Atherton could keep going west as well. And I think it's nice to have one side of the island that there's not a street there at all, so it would just be, connected to the houses on that side of Spring Street. So there's a lot of really great benefits to doing this that we have here. So we'd be increasing green space 3 to 4x. It would be really helpful for traffic calming. We actually get a surprising number of cars that go bombing down our street, and it'd be really nice to slow them down. We've talked about increased pollinators. That would be a nice benefit. We could potentially greatly increase the number of trees. If we're increasing the space by 4x, it seems reasonable that we could probably go from, say, 3 trees to maybe, 10 trees in the islands. That would be really nice. And lastly, it would just make an even nicer community space for the people in the neighborhood. So we realized this, changing Spring Street Island is not, an easy project. It's going to take some time, it takes, Somerville allocating money for it and things like that. So one thing we'd love to see in the very short term, who knows, maybe we can do that this spring, is what people have called tactical urbanism. And it'd be pretty neat if we could just close down one lane of Spring Street, just add Jersey barriers, maybe add planters. So it would change really almost nothing about traffic flow. The traffic flow would all stay the same. It wouldn't even impact parking very much because there's already a fire hydrant on Spring Street right there. So you can't really park there anyway. And I think, blocking this one lane of Spring Street, it just really raises awareness. It has minimal impact on the neighborhood, but a big benefit is I think it would create a lot of momentum to encourage the city to keep moving forward with the bigger projects to actually expand the size of the island. So I guess what we're hoping to get out of the meeting today, so all of us working on this, I think for the most part, we've never done anything like this. We have really no idea how to go about getting Somerville to approve something like this. So first of all, to the extent that UFC could formally, endorse or approve the project, that I think would be super helpful for getting movement within the city of Somerville. To the extent that you can help persuade the mayor that this would be a good project, that would be super helpful as well. Of course, we would need to allocate Somerville budget for this, and that's a process that is way beyond anything I've ever done before. So in general, just any advice for how to navigate the Somerville process to help this project move forward would be really appreciated. And that is it for my presentation. I have my contact info here if anyone wants to get in touch with me. I also want to let you know that we do have a website. We have the address here, and we have a listing on that webpage of supporters. So if you want to be listed as a supporter on the website, you can contact me and I'll go ahead and add you there. And we also do have an email group. It's an announcement-only email group just to keep the community up to date about what we're working on. And we also have a second email group for people who are more actively involved that, where we can have more like detailed discussion and things like that. Yeah, so thank you again for having me, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
This is exciting. So I want to throw to my fellow board members. who who has questions? Somebody does.
Go
Calla,
for it.
Hi, I was wondering when you showed the proposal of just blocking off one lane of Spring Street, what would you be using? Would you be using like planters to block it off, or just like what, how would you block it off?
Yeah, so I guess I would defer to Somerville as to what they think is best, but I think the two best options would be likely, or maybe three best options. You could actually do I guess the kind of ugly Jersey barriers. You could potentially put in the flex poles that you see all over town. And if the city is able to install planters there, that would probably be the most appealing. So maybe you could install planters at the end and flex poles in the middle or something like that. But yeah, I would defer to what others recommend or what the city thinks is best. And also one thing to note, in that space where we would block off, like there's nothing in the asphalt there. Like I listed the manhole cover. There's also the drain there. So in that sense, I think there shouldn't be any objections in that it shouldn't interfere, with any of the Somerville maintenance that goes on.
Chris, I see you unmuted, and I see Leia's hand.
I think Dorothy was maybe up first.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
There you are.
Yeah, this sounds like a great project. I live one street over, so I'm very familiar with all the work you've done. So congratulations on that and love this idea. Two thoughts. One is, or just a question, definitely check, are you guys in Ward 3? And if you are or
Yes.
not, check in with your council person.
Yeah, Ben is a huge supporter.
Okay, I was going to say, I can't imagine Ben wouldn't be a huge supporter of this. And I guess the other question, I'm just curious to know about the data on the environmental justice section of town. And how this, I mean, I'm a person of color. I never see anybody else that's a person of color. So I'm just kind of like, what? I'm just curious to know the data of that. I've been living there for 30 years.
There's a state GIS map, anyone can go to it. I think if you internet search Massachusetts environmental justice, you should be able to pull up the mapping tool that I use to make this, where basically there's probably a split between two different block neighborhoods, where the triangle is actually in, let's see here, it's block group 1, census tract 3512.04. And then there's a whole bunch of information that the state pulls from census data. So the block, there's 36% of the population in that block has identified themselves as minority, which the state's definition of minority just means not white, or not identifying as white. And then there's, household financial information. That block has 1,340 people in it with over 655 households. So there is general information. I can say, so Jeff and Claire live at the upper end of Spring Street. I live at the lower end of Spring Street. I would say, living on the lower end of Spring Street, there's a lot of rental properties. Most of my neighbors are either rental people or Portuguese families that have lived in their home for multiple generations. So perhaps, your perception of someone being white is not how they identify necessarily.
Just curious, thanks.
Can I take a cut at that?
And I just want to say, I put a link in the chat if you want to
Yeah.
go see the map source.
Thank you, Jeff.
I opened that up, and I think that the word block may be the confounder here, where the chunks that they have on this GIS map, first off, they are weird shaped. I don't know how they came up with these. If it were voting, I would call it gerrymandered. But looking, and I have exactly the same experience. Like my street is also under the yellow here, and I have the identical experience just walking around. And I suspect that there's some averaging and smoothing going on here, where they spread things out somehow according to some formula, and they got the averages, but it is absolutely clear to me that not every single block of street with your direct neighbors would have those same demographics.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I see Leah and then I see Pam.
Yeah, so I think this is an awesome proposal, and it's great that you have resident support and residents who are willing to do the work and say that they're going to support it for a long time. So I think it presents a really strong case. And so I just had a couple thoughts of ways I think you could strengthen your case and other, diagrams and maps you could make. Because my first thought was, yeah, Spring Street is super fun to bike down as someone who lives north of Spring Street and often is trying to get to Somerville Ave, and all the streets are one way going up. It's really hard to get to Somerville Ave from Summer Street, I guess. But I zoomed out and realized that, Belmont is also one way headed south. So I think, yeah, first point would be include on one of your base maps, maybe the first one, arrows of street direction. Because I think, a first major pushback that someone seeing this might say is that, no, I can't support this. This, is an important corridor, blah, blah, blah. So I think including the existing condition of street direction would be super helpful starting point, just so you can see, Belmont's right there. And also recognize that Atherton is one way headed west. Spring Street is, if I'm reading this correctly, is one way south of Atherton, but Spring Street is two way north of that.
That's right. Yeah.
Is that right? Okay. So I think that strengthens your case to really show, almost do like a little traffic study and say, in any direction, how do each of these scenarios impact traffic? So you can say, it doesn't, or it does, but in a very minor way that slows traffic down, but doesn't prevent anyone from where they're trying to go. I think that like doing that up front, people will be like, all right, they've thought about this. Like, just like this diagram, that would be awesome. And then I had another thought, but I'll let other folks go. I can chime back in after.
Thank you for that. That's great.
Oh, sorry. Fire truck turning radius. I think is another thing that destroys, as a landscape architect also, like just adds so much pavement. And so understanding if a fire truck going down Atherton Street needs to probably just turn right on Spring or left on Spring, knowing that they can do that without having to go around the island, I think is probably a good starting place. Or just chatting with your local fire department and seeing what considerations they might have, because I know that's something that always adds a lot of
that gets raised a lot. And one thing I'm unclear about is it seems like there's many streets in Somerville that a fire truck can't turn on. So if we have one more intersection that's hard for a fire truck, is that like a big deal? I don't know.
Yeah, well, and I think to the like arrows point, if they're only following these arrows, if they're only going, right or left from Atherton, and if they're coming down Spring Street, I think coming south from Spring Street would be the most challenging if they had to turn sort of right around the island and then hang a right. But it would probably just mean the corner of the sort of northeast corner would have to get either a radius, or if there's already parking on that section of Atherton, your bump out could get bigger on that side and also make that a one way. So yeah, definitely a lot of
Mhm.
a lot of options, but showing that you've thought about it, I think will
Mhm.
go along. I
Do you
think will
know
go a
who
long
we
way.
should talk to in the city of Somerville to get a better understanding of that?
That's a Vanessa question, but that's a great question.
I'll tell you when I get to my turn.
Okay, Pam, you had a comment and then we can go to Vanessa.
I had a question, but it was actually answered.
Huh?
So great, you guys are doing great.
Okay. Hey, Vanessa.
Okay, my turn. So I was gonna suggest that you talk to mobility next. So mobility department would be the folks who could tell you what things we might not think about. So like traffic movement,
Mhm.
like how you get rid of parking and how you deal with, or how one would have to go about getting rid of parking. Not that you specifically would have to do it, but that the city would have to do it.
Mhm.
So just the considerations that would go into changing traffic patterns, they would know
Mhm.
more about that. So that's one thing I was going to suggest that you
Is
talk to
there
the
a
mobility
particular
department.
person that you would recommend?
I know who I always talk to, but I don't know if that's the right person for you to talk to. There's a generic mobility email that might be a good place to start. There's a traffic commission, and I don't remember who staffs that.
Isn't there also a mobility, like a similar committee to ours that's about mobility and access?
There
perhaps?
is like there's like a pedestrian or something.
Yeah, it's pedestrian transit, it's PTAC, Pedestrian Transit Advisory Committee. And I can out of band give you contact info for that. The director of mobility is Brad Rawson, and he is spectacular and spectacularly busy. So if you can find a way to go direct to who we would refer you to, that I'll send a couple emails that like they're, and then like I think everybody loves this idea, and there's just going to have to be a bunch of momentum to make there be a day where it's the important thing to work on that day. It doesn't strike me as a big. It doesn't strike me as like a monstrous project. You've done great work to make it bite size, at least for next year. But yeah, like mobility and PTAC and like all of us, I think if we all like say this is straightforward and you've done the legwork, I think the question is one of just activation energy, having that like there's so many things that people have to think about, and someday this has to come to the top. That's how things get done. I'm sorry, Vanessa, I think I interrupted you.
Okay, that's all right. No problem. We have some similar stuff to say. Yeah, I do appreciate you coming here, and anywhere we can plant more trees, I'm all for it. As you may or may not know, there is like lists of things we have to do as a city, and things move slowly in the city. So there are lots of streetscape projects that are thought about like years in advance. There's lists of what we're supposed to be spending money on and what we can ask for money like to bond for. There's like a list of projects that goes 10 years from now. So it's, it's just hard to get on this list, and it doesn't mean it's not possible, but I appreciate that you have like a tactical urbanism option to sort of think about it. That takes some legwork and some effort, but definitely less than moving curb lines and a whole thing. So I like that you have a levels to your changes here. I just would say keep going, keep pushing, talk to mobility. Personally, I'm happy to support, sign on to a support letter. And don't expect things to happen super fast.
Yeah, I have realistic expectations on that.
Okay, good. Awesome.
Yeah, I think this proposal is like really would lend itself to sort of a tactical urbanism, guerrilla style, but with approval. I'd also reach out to Ben Postlethwaite from engineering. He's very responsive. And when Green and Open took over an island area at McGrath Highway and Washington Street, we worked with Jesse Moose too to get a permit to do that. I mean, if there's a possibility to get no parking on that Spring Street, that little curve there, we could even do like a painting exercise to expand the island. And currently we have 6 or 7 self-watering planters that we worked with Neighborways, Mark Chase, who is a nearby resident. And I would, would give you those if you'd like them. We could throw I have some chestnut oaks whips that we could put in there. And of course they wouldn't get very big, but it would be visible.
Yeah, that would be
That's
great.
one suggestion.
I guess we'd have to get Somerville approval to put those in.
Well, the self-watering planters, yeah, we would get approval and absolutely, yeah. But they can be moved. They're not permanent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Well, let's continue to work together. I see Chris.
Thank you. A very cynical part of me just had the thought that if I lived at this house that's on the corner, I guess it's a Spring Street with the tree over it, and I put in a dumpster permit and was particularly aggressive with the placement of that dumpster, I would have the intended effect. And I do not think that you should do that. I think that's the wrong way to go about it. But given the number of places in the city where dumpsters sit in lanes of traffic, removing parking and blocking stuff for literal years, we should be able to, as a city, get something nicer than that if the whole neighborhood wants to try a change to the parking flow or the traffic flow. I think that just it ought to be possible to do this, given that frequently construction equipment does functionally what you're asking to do, with little engagement or approval of the neighborhood.
Does anyone know like who would be the point person in Somerville to approve like this kind of tactical urbanism project? Would the mayor need to do it, or could someone at a lower level approve this?
I'd say we could reach out to the mayor, but she does trust her planning, her her traffic staff.
I think mobility is like the next step. They do a lot of the traffic planning. They work with parking, they work with DPW. So if they can't give you permission, they can tell you who would need to do it.
Yeah, mobility, I'm seconding that. Mobility absolutely have practically on the ground. I don't know how they pull it off exactly, but they will routinely come in and try flex posts and paint for new traffic patterns. And then moving curbs takes longer process and everything. But mobility, and this is a change in the last 5 years, right? Mobility routinely gets away with trying stuff that, and sometimes everybody complains and they put it back, but they seem to have broad discretion to do experiments.
Oh, good. That's good to know.
And add Brian Postleway, just because he seems to be someone who can get things done.
They do work very closely together, mobility engineering.
Well, this is fun. And we love what you're doing. We'll expand our open space, getting closer to our goal of 105 acres of civic space. Okay, it's 5:30. So thank you all for being here. And I want to move on to the next agenda item.
If I could, Tori, just could we keep this on the agenda for the first meeting of the new year? I tried to write a quick little letter of support, but we could approve this evening, and I can't write and talk at the same time. So I'm totally happy to draft that up, and we can talk about it in a month.
Absolutely. Let's do that.
Great. Well,
Uh,
thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for
That's on
having
the
us.
agenda.
We love this space and want to share it with everyone.
Yeah, I agree. This is Jane. Thanks so much for putting us on the agenda, keeping
Yep.
us in mind.
All right. Well, thank you all. You can
All
stay
right.
on if you like, of course.
Don't think I will, but thanks again.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, we're going to move on to updates from the city. Going to city tree removals.
Okay. I think that Breck gave you an update last time. I was not here. I think he sent a list. And there has not been anything new, he said today, except there were some unplanned removals yesterday, or not yesterday, Monday with the storm. We lost about 4 or 5 trees that either broke so badly they had to be removed or toppled over entirely. So there's those. That is all of there's no new list of removals that I know of. So what next time Breck has one, I'm sure he'll send it around.
All right, thank you, Vanessa. Just question, in the storm, was there much damage? Did you get a lot of 311s?
I don't keep careful tabs on the down limbs, just driving around. I noticed a lot of small ones and some medium ones. I know there was a lot of requests. I don't know how many. Sometimes there's duplicate.
Yep.
Breck was still working through all of them, so didn't have a good full report. I'm sure we've had worse storms, but it was not great.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, private tree removals, permits and exceptions. Is that supposed to be exemptions?
I think it is exceptions because we have exceptions to the permit process where they don't actually have to apply for a permit.
All right.
Yeah, there's exceptions, exemptions, and permits. It's very fun. Malik was on vacation recently and didn't have time to update the sheet. So I don't have a good report there for you. I don't remember very many exceptions in the last week or so. There may have been some before that. Not a very helpful report. There was one giant oak that was removed from 11 Prescott Street on Saturday without a permit. So we are telling them they need to get a permit ASAP, and we are very sad.
Was that the tree that had been like eating the fence and the sign? No way.
It was definitely eating a fence. And it was huge.
Huge.
It's a big loss.
That might have been our largest
50
tree.
inches.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you get that info from a 311 or
the neighbor actually reported it, wondering if they had a permit or it was tree hearing, but it's a private tree, so no tree hearing, and they did not get a permit.
Oh.
Is it this? I'm looking at a picture on Google Maps, and those roots are on the sidewalk.
I know, but so it, there's the shared tree law, our policy based on this. We've had some issues like this before. If it's touching the sidewalk a little bit, we could call it a shared tree, but our policy is if it looks like it obviously originated from private property and it's just blobbed onto the sidewalk, we count that as a private tree.
Okay, because I'm going to be super bummed if that's an owner occupant freebie.
It is not.
Okay.
It is an LLC that owns it, so I don't think an LLC lives there.
Oh, okay. Oh, this is upsetting.
Yeah. It's terrible.
And I assume all the tree is gone now.
Mm-hmm.
Leah, can you take over for a second?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah. It's a beautiful tree. Do we have any other private tree removal news?
I'm not sure what other stuff Mike said last time. There has been sort of like a slew of people not getting permits for removing their trees. I know you know of at least some of them. There's a couple more that may have happened since the last meeting. I'm not sure, but yeah, we are informing people and thinking we need to somehow make sure everyone knows they need a permit. Stop
Mhm.
just removing their trees.
Yeah. And up next would be fall tree planting update.
Okay, fall tree planting is complete. They finished planting the trees on Tuesday, 175 new trees, plus replacements of trees from previous plantings that had died or were not thriving. So that's good. Fall planting's done.
Awesome. And after that is Somerville Pollinator Action Plan Advisory Committee, which might also be Tori, in which case we can come back to that.
I'm on it too, so I can report. So what is the word? We have a consultant on board. I'm not sure you were told the name yet. So it's Offshoots. Offshoots is the company who won. They have actually started their work. They had a kickoff meeting this week or last week. So they're gathering information with Allison, figuring out how to get started. The advisory committee will start meeting again, I think starting in January, and meet regularly. So we'll have more detailed updates then. But the action plan is in action, people.
Awesome. That's great to hear.
Yeah, and I think we'll be meeting again on Mondays from like 4:30 to 5:30, and we'll send out invitations for people who want to attend. This is a really special thing, and I think we'll be seeing a lot of native plant sale pop-ups, maybe giveaways. This is a game changer. Thank you, Vanessa and Allison. Kala, I see you.
I was just wondering, how do you send out invitations? Because I think, like, I know people who might be interested, but might not be, like, I don't know, on a list where they could get their name to get an invitation.
I think all the meetings are probably listed on the Summer Voice page. I can put a link. Allison's been really good at keeping that up to date. So they should be on there. And if people want to email Allison to get on a list, that can also happen. So I'll put her email address too. Actually, there's an email that's spap@Somerville. That's probably the best one. I'll find the correct email and plop it in the chat.
Yeah, Kala, any people you can recruit. Yeah, if you can work the high school angle, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll try and talk to some people who might be interested.
Yeah, or like the Green Club. I haven't gotten in touch with that person. Anyway, yeah, let me know if you need support in doing that. But definitely contact Allison.
All right, I
Awesome.
think
Oh,
next up
okay.
is job postings, which would be me anyway. So
Okay.
I have that up. I
All
can
right.
do that quickly. I think the only things, the 2 tree surgeon positions are still open. So that's there. But another job that seems interesting is a residential decarbonization program manager in the Office of Sustainability and Environment. The goal of this position is to reduce and mitigate emissions from residential buildings, which is the community's largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, which sounds like a super cool position generally, and hopefully they can encourage people to plant trees that will shade their house and increase efficiency and all of these other things. So that's it.
Mr. Dwan?
Yeah, I have a little bit of color on that position. It used to be confusingly named the like clean green something something, and nobody knew what that meant. And this is a position now that a lot of people are seriously looking at converting from in-home fossil fuel combustion to cook and heat and stuff. We, and I count myself in this number, are all baffled about how best to go about that. There are a whole lot of different vendors who will tell you a whole bunch of conflicting things. And this position is explicitly to provide clarity on what the options are, which ones have what effect, and all of that. I don't know if they're going to do much with trees. I suspect they will have plenty to do with heat pumps, but it's a great suggestion, and I love it as in it's something the city can do to provide advice to people like me who are trying to figure this stuff out.
That's great context. And that is, yeah, I think that's what I thought as well. But yeah, is there ways that these things overlap, even like, where should you locate your large piece of machinery around your house, and should it be shaded, and what are the considerations on our inside outside thresholds? But that's cool.
I have opportunities that are not with the city, but I hope I can share them. They're with Recovered Green Roofs. There are 2 positions for horticulturalists, and with both between Cambridge and Somerville's new vegetative roof ordinances, they're I think they would benefit from more people, and I think it's going to be an industry, and yeah, those are available. Please share. I just gave the website in the chat.
And I think Althea still works there, or worked there, or is, I think, relatively recently is working there. So
Oh, really?
if you'd get to work with her, that would be a great
Yeah.
benefit.
Barbie.
For the city jobs, is there a web page or something that has the description of the jobs that could be shared around?
Definitely, I can throw it in the chat.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
basically we like recently learned that there's some cool job openings, and so we made it part of our agenda to sort of scroll through the list and see what
Yeah, I appreciate
open.
this part a lot, particularly because I'm in a life exploratory phase. Like, what kind of jobs exist out there? So
This
it's
is a
helpful
great
for
way
me.
to explore it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is a little confusing to get to. So this is the portal in the chat.
Okay, Urban Forestry Committee structure, co-chair and bylaws. Is that a standing item? Is that you, Mr. Dewan?
That's been around at least since I started trying to get out of the chair and have it be more of a rotating thing. And people expressed interest in writing down at least how we do this committee. And I think that's still on me to have an idea or to have a draft, but I've been focused on this tree preservation ordinance edit. And so I can bring back something for that in the future, but right now my backlog is ordinance amending. Unless somebody else wants to climb it.
Sounds like a great back pocket item.
I'm just wondering where there might be precedent, like where we can crib,
The Conservation Commission has bylaws.
Okay.
And just to say that my understanding is that we're under no obligation to have bylaws. If we think they're useful, we totally can. But it's just committee by committee.
Well, let's have a think on it for our next meeting. yeah, because we don't really have anything written down about rotating chairs. I don't know if there'd be, I mean, we don't need a treasurer probably, but yeah, it's interesting. Okay, moving right along. Thank you, Chris. Ongoing work updates. We have Adopt a Tree.
Just quickly, Dorothy,
Oh.
did you had your hand raised for a
Yeah,
second?
I just rose it. I'm not sure what exactly the document that you were just talking about, Chris, would include, but as co-chair and bylaws, yeah, we don't have to have bylaws, but something about, if I don't know if this fits in it, but like as a newer member, like I really don't know what the protocols or habits are of the committee, and having that from something like that from the beginning would have been, I don't know, just kind of like speed up me just sitting in meetings and just listening, because I have no idea what's going on or what acronyms you're using or what the resources are that you're referring to, like all that kind of stuff. So if that is part of this, that would be great. And I'd be happy to review it. If that's not part of it, then maybe that's something else we can, somebody that knows a lot about the committee could work on.
That's
Oh,
a great comment, and I think something we've said we will do in the past meeting, so thanks for bringing it back up. And I'll throw that on my list. Like a upstart guide, and maybe it can be sort of a 1-2 page vision of the committee and how we operate and how we bring in new folks.
Thank you.
Yep, and any support is always needed on that. You know, if Dorothy, you're interested in doing some.
I'm happy to review it.
Okay.
But I don't know what I would write. It would require so much editing that it might not be worth it.
But if you do have a list of questions,
I could do that.
That would be a great place to start.
Okay. Who do I send them to? Vanessa?
If you want to send them to me, I can start the answering document, and then maybe we can work on crafting that.
I don't think I have your email address. So
I can.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, it occurs to me that that's something that I do at work that I should also have done here, is to just tell people, like, when you're new, you have beginner's mind, and you will see the things that are obvious, but that all of us are blind to. And it's an incredibly important time in an organization when somebody joins to be like, what are we doing that's weird and incomprehensible that we all just assume is okay? So thank you for offering to send that in, and to Leah for capturing it.
And I'm just going to include you, Chris, on this email chain that I'm starting, which will help keep all of us accountable. If we tell more people we're going to do things.
And where could we, I'm on the Conservation Commission page, and I'm looking for their bylaws, and I don't,
I'm not sure they were ever put on anywhere, but I did help work on them. I'm not even sure they were adopted, but we do have there was a draft of something that I feel like could be used. I will
would you
look
be able
for
to
it.
find that? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Would Malik have that, or Michael Fager?
Yeah, Michael Fager would have, if anything happened, or Malik after I left. I can also dig up a super old version that could be just, something to work from.
I'll send out an email to Michael Fager and Malik, and I'm going to CC you, Leah, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next item. Okay, outreach.
Oh, and I think Adopt a Tree has no updates.
Oh, Adopt a Tree. Yep.
Other than, I think a lot of these things are going to be me saying, yes, we need to have a meeting soon. This year has gotten the best of me. So I think, yeah, Adopt a Tree, outreach, and species selection all have outstanding coordination meetings that are going to happen when we all become superhuman in 2024.
And that's me too.
But we've done a lot of stuff too this year, which is important to recognize.
Yes, we have, if anyone wants to go on the Urban Forestry Committee website, we do have Leah put together, or we did it. Everyone did it, I think.
Everyone did it.
Yeah, plants, herbaceous plants, shrubbery, and trees that we might plant, that you might plant as a resident. A native plant tree guide. And what else did we do? We did something else. I mean, we had awesome events. Did some pretty awesome events, gave away a lot of plants. And, you know, thanks to Vanessa for being able to acquire those plants. And people really love that. Just being like, here's a lobelia. People are like, okay, well, yes, thank you. Yeah, so I think we've been really successful. So just combining, you know, outreach and the species selection and yeah, we do probably need, we'll have to have a few meetings, and anyone who we had, you know, Jennifer Clifford did a lot with the outreach and adopt a tree. So we're probably going to have support there going into the new year. Oh, yes. The updated Somerville's Most Wanted Weeds is still in the works. We still need more photos for some of the species. And that's also, okay, I'm gonna share that with Claire O'Neill. I don't know if she's been contributing, but we definitely, she has a lot of photos. Barbie.
Yeah, I was gonna ask which species, and I also have a lot of photos.
Awesome.
Oh, which species are our most wanted?
Yes, we could talk offline about this too, but I have a lot of photos and documentation of all the various invasive species that are common in this area.
We have a list in the last meeting minutes. I can send that to you via email.
I put my
And-
email in the chat earlier also.
Perfect. Okay,
Can we
perfect.
put that in the general chat in case anyone else,
Put what?
because isn't there a,
The
Most
list of
wanted weeds
names?
list.
yeah, a list that people can, there was a QR code where people
Yeah,
could
it's posted
send their
somewhere.
images.
I think I was just talking about the list of species we still needed photos for was on last
Okay,
month's agenda. I mean, minutes. I will also put a link in the chat of the full document ask thing for you.
okay.
Oh, please. You can keep going, but I will put it in shortly.
Okay.
And sorry, before Barbie, you were interested in joining the bylaws, team
Yeah,
bylaws and
just because
initiation?
I'm also now I'm hoping to be more involved, a new person, and I might be able to provide some of that
Awesome.
new eyesight, lots of questions.
That's great.
Okay, moving on to our next item that gonna have some discussion is the tree preservation ordinance. Putting the link in the chat to the current ordinance, although I can't seem to, okay. You can download it from that link. And yes, so Chris, do you want to take this one?
I would love to.
Okay.
Do I have the power of sharing my screen? It looks like I do. All right, who's ready to get nerdy? Let's do some legislation.
Let's dig into it. Let's go.
Let's get in the weeds. So this is the third meeting where we're discussing this. I have as on the prior two occasions, very, very optimistically and aggressively gone ahead and put it on the letterhead and put it in a form where we could just say yes. This is not to say that it's perfect. We have not yet voted on it. We just always have that step where like we have to edit it up and reapprove it. And so I bring before you another thing where we could choose to just approve it if we wanted to. And if we don't, I'm totally cool with that. I love these conversations. So what we have is a letter to the city council that suggests 5 now amendments to the tree preservation ordinance. This ordinance was passed in 2019. It was amended in 2020, and it created this committee. It created the permit process for removal of trees on private property, which we were told when we were, I was one of the activists who pushed for it. We were told that that was not legal and we couldn't do it. And it turns out we totally can. And so we have no power to make these changes. That's really super important. This committee just advises. I feel like we are 100% in our lane to advise the council to take some stuff up. But what happens if we send this is that maybe nothing, maybe they are busy with other stuff, which, but I suspect that some city councilor would take this up and propose that it be discussed, and then it would go to legislative matters, and they might invite some of the chairs to go and explain our thinking about this. And then maybe over a couple months of conversation, we get an incremental change to the way the city's laws read. So we talked last time about adjusting appointment requirements for youth members, and that was pretty non-controversial. We talked about adjusting the grace period on fines where there was right now, if you have an unpermitted removal and you don't get a permit, you get 30 days to go get right with a permit. Right. And that's a very mistakes happen, just get in with the law. We're not super grabby approach. The proposed change there is that each owner gets one of those. And if you just remove without a permit a second or subsequent time, then you get fined for doing a removal without a permit. And that was itself a compromise. I came in guns blazing, asking that we just nuke this 30-day grace period. And Vanessa talked me back and said, no, it's reasonable to have a grace period. Mistakes happen. I had proposed removing the owner occupant exemption, where if you're an owner occupant, you still have to apply for a permit, but there's no requirement to pay or replant because you're an owner occupant. That I thought came to a very nice compromise where instead of it being a complete exemption, owner occupants, in recognition of the fact that trees are expensive to maintain, they're kind of a burden, they create a risk, they get a 90% reduction in fees rather than a complete exemption. So that acknowledges the cost of maintaining the trees. It acknowledges the burden of being a homeowner, and it takes just a little step acknowledging, I think, what most of us have heard from the community, that it's a really big loophole in the tree protection to just say owner occupants get a free pass every time. So that was the controversial one, and I've made those edits in this document. And then Vanessa and I found this duty of care in the Cambridge law that would say anytime a permit goes out, you're expected to protect the trees for like you're doing any kind of work, you're expected to protect the trees. And I think that's brilliant. I think it's uncontroversial. I think we should do it here. And then the last one is new by request of Tori, that in 2019, we said invasive species as defined by the state are you're not required to, you get an immediate exemption for removing them. Like you don't have to pay, you don't have to replant, you are just allowed to remove invasive species. In 2020, one of the city councilors came in and said, what about really big Norway maples? What about 24-inch Norway maples? Can't we have some protection for those? There's really a lot of them. And the city council passed that. And so now we have a situation where really large invasive trees enjoy a certain level of protection. And I'm interested in the conversation about whether we should now suggest that they remove that because they are invasive. They do inhibit understory growth. They do spread themselves across the land in the way of invasives, and also they provide shade and cooling and all that good stuff. And some people love the great big Norway maple in their backyard. I have made language to make it super easy for the council should they want to just adopt this. I went ahead and showed them what they would need to do to the law. My green turned to orange somewhere along the way. I'm totally happy to talk about any or all of this. I would be interested to hear where folks want to go. What do you want to talk about? Which are controversial for you? Like, floor is open.
Okay, first, Chris, you are amazing. And so if it's okay, I'd like to start with, well, personally, I'd like to start with number 3. Barbie and Vanessa, I see your hands up. Is that okay with you? Is that cool? Because it's a little bit, my proposal's not as weedy. My question is, with the 90% reduction in fees, does that also mean if it was replanted, a 90% reduction in replacement inches, caliper inches? I don't know if we need to say that.
As I have drafted it, I put in the minimal text. I'm really annoyed that all my green became orange somewhere along the way. But as I have drafted it, I did the minimum thing I could possibly do. I said, instead of just waiver of, which is what we say now, I said reduction in the amount of 90% to the requirements. So yes, similarly, that would be, and this is practically when you've got a very large tree. I'm sorry, I'm just saying out loud what everybody knows. When you've got a very large tree, it's not possible on a small lot to put in, 24 inches of sapling to replace that 24-inch tree you took down. There's space for like a tree.
Well, I'm going to challenge you on that because just put a Milwaukee forest in on a residential property who had a very large, well, 24-inch tree removed. We were successfully able to replant, but we were successfully able to get the caliper inches, because it was so close, planted closely together. So but it was further away from the tree that was removed. So, it was just kind of nice to have a sort of solution to pay, $16,000 into a tree fund versus funding a Milwaukee forest installation. So, okay, that answers my question. I guess we're going to get into some of the more meatier stuff. Vanessa, and then Barbie, and then Dorothy.
Well, that was my question too. So great minds and all that. Regarding number 3, that was it. If we're sticking to 3, that's all I got.
And just to say, this letter is at an interesting point in its life where it started off being something that was mine, but it's becoming ours. So if we, the committee, want to say something different, we totally can.
Okay, I like it. Vanessa, did you have a direct response to that? Okay.
I was trying to unraise my hand and I raised it.
Okay. You're on, Barbie.
Oh, sorry. So for my, just for my understanding, are all trees that are considered invasive by the state currently exempt from this removal permitting thing?
So right now,
with the exception of Norway maples.
Right now the language is weird. Right now the language says, we start off, I mean, this is absolutely best practice to just point at a state level list rather than make up our own. It prevents all kinds of problems. And then we say, however, and the editor in me just wants to nuke however, because you can always delete the word however at the beginning of a sentence without impacting the meaning. But it says Norway maples and other trees larger than 24 inches, except for Allianthus. So basically, we exempted any 24-inch diameter tree that's not an Allianthus. Which that my turning point in my thinking, Tori, and you and I had a conversation earlier about this. That was where I realized this is just weird and we should remove it. That's my opinion.
Okay, because sorry. I'm just thinking about what, like, in my new apartment, the neighbors have I guess they're not 24, they have a huge row of Norway maples and of Tree of Heavens that has grown up over the past like 5 years. Not while I was living there, but I'm like in my gardening brain, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be such an endeavor trying to keep all of that from spreading. Um, and I'm just interested in like what the removal process for that would be and would that require a permit? And so what I'm hearing right now is that no, those would not require a permit, mainly because they're less than 24 inches and also because they are all on the invasive species like state level list.
Yeah, and Vanessa, correct me if I'm wrong, the process on an invasive, a significant sized invasive is that they come to you and Malik and you say, those are invasive, you don't need a permit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
these aren't
so,
even I'm not sure what qualifies as
so yeah,
significant size.
significant is 8 inches or greater. So the best practice is for anyone to come to us and say, hey, do I need a permit? These are invasives. I don't think we do. And then we say, you're right, you don't. Here's your exemption from the permit process, exemption. But if we don't know, then we might come and just see a stump and
Mhm.
try to need more information after the fact when it's harder to get. So
Mhm.
ask
right.
and we will exempt.
Sounds good.
Accept. Ugh, whatever.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was my question.
Okay, Dorothy, and I see Leah, and I might put myself on stack too.
Dorothy, you're muted.
Okay. So thank you, Chris. This is very nicely done. I guess I have a question about the owner occupied piece of it, and I didn't know if there was a language either in the entire ordinance now or if it could be added here that kind of just talks about financial hardship or for low income residents.
So yes, and this is the part, so I didn't actually copy it in, did I? Right, so we've got all of these exceptions and exemptions, and now I'm confused about which word applies. And paragraph C and D in here grant the tree warden discretion to waive fees. And this is a risky thing to have in law because anytime you give discretion to an official, you open the door to a lawsuit because somebody would say, well, they're just doing that because you're friends or they're doing it for the wrong reasons or whatever. But the intent that we spelled out in paragraph C and D does include financial hardship specifically.
Thank you.
Great questions. Leah.
Yeah. Barbie's question spurred a long chain of questions in my head, which made me think about the large Norway maple that sits outside of my house under 2 walls, 3 fences, and asphalt. My landlords could cut that down, and without depaving, there would be no way to put a new tree anywhere close to my house. So by exemptioning this, it's sort of a bigger question of, are we okay with possibly a faster rate of decreasing our canopy and carbon capture with the hope that we are able to replant natives at a rate that will make it worth it in the long run. But because Norway maples and other trees are so aggressive and strategic in the way that they grow, they're in a lot of places where other things could not be replanted. So it's a big, yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I think the 50 years from now, we'll want more native plants than Norway maples. So I feel like in that case, it makes sense to, the bigger the Norway maple, the more seeds they're producing, the more it's preventing other things from growing. So I think I'm still in support of removing them. I think we should be aware of the possible consequences of that, of like, yeah, now my landlord and many others across the city will now have no hesitation to cut this down beyond the cost and like all that other stuff. But it is knowing that Norway maples are like 25% of our canopy. Are we okay with losing 25% of our canopy right now for possible growth in the future? That was a lot. This is great. It's a wonderful conversation to be having.
That was exactly when we had this conversation in 2020. The phrase that I remember somebody saying was that if it was a choice between an invasive and a native, I'm always going to choose the native, but our choice is probably more like between a large invasive and an additional parking space.
Yep.
Okay, I see you, Vanessa, but I might want to, so I put this change, I propose this change to Chris. So let me, okay. However, Norway maples and other larger trees than 24 inches. Okay, so this would just be removing that protection of being 24 inches or greater.
Yep.
The reason that I have such animus towards Norway maples is that they host not a single Lepidoptera, like not one. That's a butterfly or moth, and their larvae, of course, are caterpillars, which feed birds. One of the only ways we increase our bird population, one of the ways is we need fledglings. We need baby birds. Baby birds don't eat seeds, they eat caterpillars. So not only at the moment are we in a climate crisis, but we are in a biodiversity crisis, and we are losing creatures at a very rapid pace. This is not something that we can wait like 50 years for the ecosystem to sort of reestablish itself. It's something we need to do immediately. And since Norway maples, especially, are so large, and are invasive species, I mean, they're again of 25%, I think, as you said, of our canopy, they are just spreading themselves. And there's no way we are going to get rid of them and heal our ecosystem if we're putting barriers up to have them removed. And that's my main concern. I mean, personally, I think we should be paying people to remove Norway maples because they, again, prevent our native plants from being able to exist underneath them. I have 3 Norway maples in the back of my house, begging my landlord to cut them down. He argues carbon capture, and I just say biodiversity crisis. For me, that's just as equally concerning, because if we don't have our pollinators, we don't have food. And as our pollinators go, so do we. And so that's the fact that they prevent other understory plants from thriving is my main concern. And the fact that they reproduce so rapidly and grow so rapidly is people blink and then they have a huge tree in their yard. And it's like, oh, I got a free tree. Maybe not understanding the damage that the Norway maples and other invasives cause. So that's my argument. And I just see this definitely as a very tricky, very, very tricky. I mean, if we could pay people to cut them down, or if people cut them down and they want to replant with native plants, can we, I mean, again, I don't know at what point I just think keeping them does just much more damage than just letting them. I'm not saying it's gonna, I mean, I don't think it's gonna happen. We're gonna lose 25% of our canopy in a single year or 10 years, but I just want to remove barriers,
Certainly. Yeah.
especially for homeowners to take them down. Vanessa, I see your hand.
Yeah. This is a tricky one. I see it both sides. I'm trying to think of, the devil's advocate position. If there is a very large Norway maple, like it's still a tree. I had one outside my window and I was very sad when the storm damaged it. It again, like Leia's tree, was surrounded by asphalt, so probably not spreading too much. But it may not create habitat. It doesn't create habitat for Lepidoptera or birds, but it does create shade and an environment that makes people feel better. It's, it's a tree, still a tree. It's better than no tree. Some maybe arguably you don't agree, but if there's no alternative, I think it's better than nothing. And there are lots of places where they are because they were heavily planted in the past. So I see your point, and I wouldn't want to lose a whole bunch all at once. And I know that there would be people who would be upset to lose one when they wouldn't have a say whether or not it got to stay. So I'm kind of on the fence here.
If I can respond to a few things. I think to a point that I imagine Chris would make, and not to put words in your mouth, but probably no one's waiting for us to put this out and immediately cut down all the Norway maples. So I don't think it's something that's going to happen in the course of a year or something like that. I think it also sends a really strong message because a lot of other cities and towns have similar exemptions, which are very frustrating. But I think this, again, would be setting an example. And I think as a response, I think it's something we should recognize if we do have the chance to present this in front of someone. And I think our response is that we need to aggressively plant more native plants, which is what we're trying to do. So I think for that reason, I'm in favor of it because it's the future that we want to see. But it, potentially has consequences, but we need to make a city that has a lot more native trees as our super canopy. And the only way to do that is to make space for them to grow up.
I mean, in response to that, I'd say 100% I'd be on board if someone said, I want to remove this giant Norway maple and plant 10 native plants. But if they're not doing that, I still think a tree is better than no tree. I also wanted to point out that the way that it's written now, you're removing the exemption from other invasive plants as well. So now, right now, Tree of Heaven is this weirdo that we're like, get rid of them all. They're terrible. But there are 4 other species: Norway maple, sycamore maple. I'm blanking on the other 2 because it's too late in the day. But there are 2 more. And so if we do proceed with this and are specifically talking about Norway maple, then we should change the way that this is written.
That's actually a really solid point. I went beyond Tori's ask. We could just move Norway maples into the parenthesized thing here and say it's not an automatic exemption if you are larger than 24 inches, except for tree of heaven and Norway maple. And that's an even smaller step that we could take. And if that exact thing, like I'm a big fan of taking a series of small steps all in the right direction. You know, yeah, I don't know the right thing on here. Like I have a smaller number of years than I would like in front of me to enjoy the trees. And it's getting to the point where I don't think I have like a full grow a mature tree in front of me anymore. So I want to keep the ones that are here now. And that's selfish because they're not mine. They belong to everybody. You know, they belong to themselves. So I don't know the right thing here either, except I forget who said it. I think it was Leah talked about being real strategic and potentially leading regionally to say, as a region, if we want to wind up with less Norway maples, we need to remove the barriers to cutting them down. And that's kind of a bitter pill because they're big and they're pretty and they shade our houses right now.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. And it's funny, it's like I look at them and I see all the creatures that don't exist because of them. And that's what gets me, because we're making a choice. If we remove barriers to cutting them down, we're making a choice about who can live. And that's what bothers me. We're saying we're more important, and creatures that could exist cannot. And that sort of capacity that we have to change our decisions of what literally, I mean, what plants exist, since they're sort of determining all the biodiversity that is above them, we're eliminating so many species of creature, include, not just the Lepidoptera, but birds and all the small mammals that depend on them. I know we don't like our rats, but owls, like all the creatures. So that's why there's distressing. I would say distressing to me. And also because I deal with them so frequently in my work that it's just, I just don't know what to do. And they're costly. I mean, so the homeowner exemption, no. Since we're no longer having a homeowner exemption, it's still a barrier. So so many of these plants are 30 to 40 to 50 inches. So let's say, what's 50 times 500? 25,000, right? So it would still cost a homeowner, 2,500 in addition to the 10,000 or 8,000 that it would cost to remove the tree.
Yeah, as you say that, if I could just respond on the cost thing, one of all the way, but like the super clear one that people don't really argue about is when a non-owner occupant developer comes in, it clear cuts a heavily forested lot. And I feel like the big step that we took with this ordinance was that we changed the value in money of the mature trees on those lots from 0 to more than 0. And that step put it into their calculations. Like all of a sudden, when it shows up as not 0, then they're like, oh, maybe we should think about what we're going to do before we just clear this lot, and maximize the square footage available. This change sets that value of 24-inch, 2 foot across Norway maples back to 0. So in my eyes, the risk is if you've got, and I'm torn because we've got two renters on this meeting who live near large Norway maples that, you know, right now the landlord would have to go and pay some money and commit to replanting. And with this change, they could come in and get verification that it's an invasive species and then cut them down, which is kind of what we want for the long term. And also, you know, the back porch wouldn't be shaded anymore. You know, so my hesitation is removing that barrier and having developers go, oh yay, now I can just clear cut the lot. Even if kind of sort of the removal of those trees is what we're asking for. I go back and forth on this. I am tempted to suggest that we put this one into next year and pass the rest. And I'm also tempted to push ahead and get this just barely more than half of the committee to pass it. I don't know the right thing. Like I also hesitate with something that is so fraught. We've got so few of us here this evening. It's possible we should take it up at a fourth meeting when we have like more than just 6 of us here at the very end. I would actually be like, and as we've all said, I don't think there's a line of people waiting on us to issue this. I would rather get it right than do it fast.
I totally agree. And a few things that just popped in my head was like, what if since we want the Norway maples out or the invasive species out and native plants in, what if on the invasive species, like it is required to replant so many caliper inches of native species, like some sort of wording that guarantees that these Norway maples will be, if they're removed, then a certain amount gets replanted. That was one thought. And the other was, I mean, I guess the thought is, if there's no, I just don't want someone to be like, I can't afford this, therefore I'm going to keep the Norway maple. And when there's an opportunity to like make this easier, to take them out. I don't know. I see Pamela and Kala, and I recognize time. Just motion to take 5 more minutes to discuss this topic. All in favor? Just give me a verbal aye. Because
Aye.
oh, right. Okay.
Aye.
Awesome. Okay. Pamela and Kala.
I just have one very quick thing to say, which is in terms of trying to get people to do what you want them to do with the trees. Maybe a carrot works better than a stick. Is there some additional incentive that can be offered to get, well, first of all, to educate people? Because I was today years old when I learned that Norway maples don't support any kind of Lepidoptera. I didn't actually, I mean, I knew they were bad, but I didn't know that. And just try to incentivize people. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Kala.
I totally agree with Pamela's point about educating people, and also I don't know if this is already in the wording of the ordinance, but if we could say that like all tree replanting has to be a native species, would that kind of reassure the issue of that?
I'm looking at section.
It definitely doesn't
Yeah.
say that. No, it can't be an invasive species, but it doesn't say it has to be native.
That is an interesting thought, though, Kala.
And on the, just to respond to the carrots versus sticks, I love this conversation. I 100% agree. And it is super tricky as a government entity to provide money or resources to some property owners that you don't provide to all of them. And yes, people figure out how to do it. God, what was the metaphor we had? We've been talking about this for so long. It's such a tricky thing. We talked about the mass save program. That is a way that the state gives resources to some property owners, but not others, to make improvements to their property in a direction that we want. That we give you a big old tax rebate if you go solar and heat pump. I would love it if there was a mass save for planting natives. You know, and I've been doing this a while, and I don't know how I would get that passed. But yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I have a couple thoughts, and one is, so Cambridge, you can get a tree planted on a private property through the Canopy Crew, and Cambridge does provide money to that nonprofit, and so they kind of get around, I don't know, the city's money going to private property. But then I recall at some point the city was offering to plant on private property. This was like 5 years ago, maybe 6. Like, then you could request a tree to be planted on your property. Does anyone have a recollection of that?
In this city?
Yeah.
No. Nope.
Okay.
There was the thing where we
There's-
thought, hey, wouldn't it be neat to put the street trees on the private property side of the sidewalk rather than the car side? Because then all the dumb things that always happen with clearances wouldn't happen. And it turns out to be possible, but it's like complicated.
Cambridge has that type of program.
God, I swear I remember this was before Vanessa, that this,
I've been here 7 years, so more than 7 then.
okay. Well, possibly.
Sounds like we need a nonprofit that wants to plant a lot of trees to partner with.
Yeah, if that's a workaround, I'd love that.
But in the essence of time, it seems like, yeah, we might need more time to ruminate,
Yep,
discuss with
absolutely.
the full crew next year.
I will send this version to Vanessa so you can attach it to the minutes, and then we will continue on. I love this conversation, by the way. Thank you for that. I'm so glad we have a place to have this conversation, and I'm so glad that you folks are here to have it with.
Yeah. I agree. Okay, going on to approval of the meeting minutes for November. And did everyone have a chance to look at them?
Motion to approve the
Motion.
November meeting minutes.
I second the
any-
motion.
Excellent. All in favor?
On a roll
Uh,
call this one.
Roll call. Calla,
Approve.
Chris,
Approve.
Dorothy,
Approve.
Leah,
Approve.
Vanessa,
Approve.
Tori, approve. Well, thank you to you wonderful people. And we didn't talk about the new applications for our new members, but we did get 9 applications for the 2 spots. So this is going to be an abundance of riches. And I think all those who apply, we're going to still need to capture in some way, since there's such interest in this committee. So,
And 2 youth member applicants as well.
okay. So there's total of 4 spaces.
There's 3 spaces, 2
Oh, right,
general
'cause I know-
members, 1 youth.
Okay. Again, abundance of riches. Okay, thank you, everybody. The light is coming back. And that's a good thing. Okay, enjoy your winter break. See y'all
Motion
later.
to motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. I don't know if we can
Bye.
adjourn.
Bye,
with our
happy holidays.
subform.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.